Hello and welcome to the final session of the 2021 Journalism AI Festival. Welcome everybody. My name is Mattia, as you see on screen and probably know already if you've been following the festival this week. And I'm really excited to introduce the very final session already of the festival. The week went by super fast. We had 16 fantastic sessions across the week. This is session number 17. And I just want to thank all the speakers for the amazing contribution they have given to the festival so far, and to you all following at home for your great questions and participation. As always, the festival is a celebration, as you know, of the most exciting developments at the intersection of journalism and artificial intelligence. And we're here today to look into the future of this. We are the Journalism AI team at Polis, which is the journalism think tank of the London School of Economics and Political Science. And Journalism AI is funded by the Google News Initiative. I encourage you to go to journalismai.info to check about all our activities, our research, our training programs and courses, collaborative initiatives, and so much more. And if you are following us on YouTube, feel free to use the live chat to ask your questions and comments to the speakers throughout the session. Don't wait to the end. Post your questions whenever they come to your mind, and we'll be picking them up during the Q&A time. You're also very welcome to join the community on Telegram at t.me/journalismai. And please always use the hashtag journalismai if you're sharing what you're learning about the festival on social media. On the YouTube at youtube.com/polislsc, you can find already all the videos of the 16 festival sessions we hosted so far. And this video, this very session, will be added right after we're done here. And please sign up for the newsletter if you don't receive it already. The link is going to be on the festival website, on the Journalism AI website, and everywhere else. And as always, our encouragement for the last time in this edition to be open, be curious, and be kind. We're learning together, and that's the best way to do so. I'm here to introduce a fantastic panel that will close the program of the 2021 festival. So we'll soon be hearing from Jeremy, Agnes, and Abhishek, and especially from Charlie Beckett, who is the director of Journalism AI at the LSE. And Charlie, I'm very pleased to introduce you on stage, and to you the honor of introducing our speakers. So everyone at home, enjoy the final session of the 2021 Journalism AI Festival.
Thank you so much, Mattia. Thanks very much. And yeah, it's been such an exciting and enjoyable week. It is a little bit sad that it's coming to an end, like all good things must. I've continued to learn so much from listening to all these wonderful speakers, the experts and the people who have participated in our projects this year. It's a year when we really expanded the project. It's become much more global. It's become much more involved with innovative digital news organizations, new digital native news organizations around the world as well, which has really been exciting. And I'm just so impressed that we all know that journalism is facing such big challenges, not least the pandemic, of course. And I'm just thrilled and impressed by the way that the journalists and other experts that we've worked with have put so much effort into their research and innovation and collaboration and learning at this difficult time. It's really inspirational. Obviously, we're obsessed by AI, but AI is not going to be the solution to all of journalism's problems at all. But I'm very much hopeful that these technologies can at least help good journalists to do their work even better, even more efficiently, for example, and also to reach the public who are so in need of good information and a good space to analyze and understand their world. So I think there is a big future for these technologies in journalism. And to discuss that, I'm really pleased to have three of the cleverest people I know to talk about the future of AI and journalism. We've got Jeremy Gilbert, who's the Knight Professor of Digital Media Strategy at the Medill School at the Northwestern University over in Chicago. Before he joined Northwestern, Jeremy was the Director of Strategic Initiatives for the Washington Post. And he's also been a great friend of our Journalism AI project. He was the lead partner, for example, for the Americas collab teams this year. Also joining us, we've got Agnes Stenbom, who is the responsible data and AI specialist at the Nordic publishing group Schibsted. She's also a PhD candidate at the Stockholm KTH Royal Institute of Technology. She was a participant in the Journalism AI collab last year, and this year she's been doing some work researching the idea of collaboration in our project, and what lessons we can learn from that. And over to thirdly, Abhishek Prasad, who's the head of insights and innovation at the HT Media Group in Delhi. That's one of the biggest media groups in India. And Abhishek has over a decade of experience in digital innovation in publishing and journalism. So by all means, please put your questions to the panel or your comments as well. But I'm going to start off by asking all three of them just to tell us a little bit about what you've been doing this year that you think's going to have an impact on this field of journalism and AI in the future. And I'll start with you, Jeremy, please.
Thank you, Charlie. I'm thrilled to be here and thrilled to be part of the Journalism AI Festival. I think this year has shown even leaps and bounds of improvement since last year. It's been a busy year for us. I oversee the Night Lab, which is based in the Medill School at Northwestern University, and it's an interdisciplinary lab where journalists, technologists, and designers are experimenting together. And the lab has a long history of collaboration and really a pursuit of innovation in media. And this year, we've really refocused the lab around two research themes. One is Web3 technologies, so we're really exploring what the distributed ledger can mean for journalism. But the other, more relevant to this conversation, is all about artificial intelligence. And we have done that through partnerships with Journalism AI, with other groups at Northwestern University. And there are really three things that I wanted to touch on. One, you already mentioned. We were thrilled to be the regional partner for Collab AI for the Americas. And we had 3 teams from 7 different countries in the Western Hemisphere. Our focus was exploring AI technologies like machine learning, natural language processing, computer vision, all in the support of investigative journalism and to help hold the powerful accountable. I know there's been a dedicated session, you've heard a lot about it, but just in case you haven't tuned into any of those, the 3 teams pursued 3 different areas of research, all of which have been fairly successful and really exciting. One was about document analysis. The second one was about detecting misogynistic political speech. And the third one was about interpreting satellite imagery. And so if you're interested in any of those, you can go back and watch the previous session that we held, and there are links in Journalism AI all about that. This collaboration has been really rich and valuable to us, especially because it helped connect newsrooms around the Western Hemisphere and throughout the world in ways that probably we wouldn't have been working on otherwise. The second thing I wanted to talk about is a collaboration that we're involved in with the Knight Foundation and the Associated Press. So that's part of the Knight Foundation's AI and Local News Initiative. And we have spent a chunk of the year looking at what is the readiness of US-based local newsrooms to employ artificial intelligence techniques. And so working with a group of students, we've done really 2 things. One, we've helped the Associated Press do dozens of interviews with local newsrooms in the United States to assess what are their primary needs and what is their preparation to be ready to work with AI tools. And the second thing, and we're about to announce this, we haven't yet, is we have compiled a collection of those tools and built a very simple instrument to allow local newsrooms to assess their own readiness to use AI. So I think it is part of this larger effort with Journalism AI, with a lot of different initiatives to try to say, how and when should local newsrooms use AI tools? And frankly, what are the AI tools that are out there that can help? And it's really important to differentiate between what is an easy plug and play web-based solution and what would require some engineers or developers to help you implement. And then finally, the third initiative that I want to talk about, which we just announced about a week and a half ago, is the Data-Driven Reporting Project. And this is supported by an incredibly generous gift from the Google News Initiative's Journalist Studio Fund. And we are going to be able to award $2 million in funds for document-based, technology-centric investigative reporting projects with a real focus on local news and local newsrooms and underreported communities. And the whole idea will be, if you have a project in the works or project that you think could use document-based reporting, and you need support, whether it's for the technology piece or some other component of the project, then we'll allow you to apply, and we're going to give out awards until we reach this $2 million limit. In addition to the funds that we have, we'll also provide some training if you need it. And we'll try to build a community again around investigative reporters and newsrooms that are doing investigative reporting that are really focused on the use of technology tools like some of the ones we've been talking about through the festival.
That's fantastic, Jeremy. And I love the way that you represent, and the work you're doing represents this wonderful collaboration, connection between, obviously, the university, the research, the students, all that expertise, and the real practitioners, obviously around the AI tech, but also around all sorts of other kind of issues. I love that connection that you're making. And that obviously.
Oh, I'm sorry, Charlotte.
Well, I was going to say, go on.
I was just going to say, if we're doing this right, we forge, as Agnes is doing and others have done, a real meaningful partnership between what can be done in the academy, that is often more theoretical, and what needs to be done in the field. And at the same time, we create this next generation of journalists who have these technology skills that are so important, and simultaneously train the existing generation of journalists. Like, that's when all of those goals are met, that's how we're going to make real progress.
Exactly. And obviously I love it because, I'm a prof at the LSE, but I just love this year, these last 3 years, in fact, working on this project and seeing, seeing the transformation that can happen in the journalism, the real journalism that's out there. And that does take us very neatly to Agnes. As Jeremy mentioned, Agnes, you have this kind of dual life as well, don't you? Working with Schibsted, but also doing your own research and study. What have you been up to this year?
Exactly. You make it sound as if I have dual lives, a split personality. But yes, indeed, I try to build bridges between these two worlds. So first off, very happy to be part of this session and this great festival. Looking forward to a weekend of catching up with all the sessions I couldn't fit into my calendar. So Charlie already mentioned that I work at the Nordic group Schibsted, which is journalism, but also much more. So I do an industrial PhD together with Schibsted. So I spend my time working on strategic initiatives related to AI, and then I do research on AI and journalism specifically. So I'd want to share two initiatives from the past year. In Schibsted, we've been spending a lot of time this year on trying to build efficient structures for making teams equipped to work with AI in the most efficient way. And in that work, risk awareness and risk management has really been absolutely key. I was listening in on this brilliant festival session yesterday where Surya Mattu of the Markup, he highlighted how the reason that any given AI system causes harm, that's not because somebody wants it to. It's because somebody failed to think about the particular risk or problem beforehand. And I'd just like to echo his point and briefly share what our thinking around this topic is at Schibsted. So we want to give our teams the best possible tools to understand the implications of their product and services. We want to be able to imagine possible futures and take action to ensure that we only pursue the scenarios that actually align with where we want to go. So to do this, we've created this new framework for risk assessment that we call FAST, and we're currently piloting that across our group. The FAST framework represents a deliberate focus on risks in the areas of fairness, accountability, sustainability, and transparency. And we've published all of this publicly, so you're more than welcome to have a look at the framework and see if it could be relevant to you as well. It is an intentionally broad take or framework, and it is so because Schibsted does journalism, but we also do a lot of other things like running the major circular marketplaces in our markets. We invest in startups in the energy sector. So we're using AI to achieve very different business goals and social impact. So with that in mind, our approach to risk awareness and management, that's been very much oriented towards assigning responsibility close to the end product and close to the people, with the people who know the end product and the goals of that product the best. So our experiences from this past year has been that it's really crucial to ensure that the teams and the people who are actually working with the services feel a sense of ownership in the practice of ensuring responsible AI. They know their product the best, and through increased risk awareness, they can make it even better. And so far, we've been getting very positive signals in terms of buy-in to shouldering that responsibility. And I do feel that there's been a growing sense of urgency this past year in the AI ethics space, where it's reaching beyond those who are already committed to equitable tech and socio-technical policy, those kind of areas. EU regulation is very likely to be coming, and with that, we can expect increased formal requirements on businesses like us, but also severe financial implications that are very sure to have an impact on journalistic products and processes as well. And I do feel like there's a growing awareness of the critical effect that a lack of risk awareness can have on a product experience and on user trust, which both obviously relate to loyalty and willingness to pay, for news included. So these topics like fairness, accountability, sustainability, transparency, they've been notoriously hard to quantify, hard to business case. But I feel like in this past year, they're moving from nice to haves to actually must haves in news media business cases. So that's one thing that I see is going to have a lot of impact going forward for us, but also other businesses.
Great.
Then another, yeah, sorry.
Go on.
No, I was just going to share another initiative that we've been working on this past year, which is obviously related to the collab and the idea of collaboration, where Ola Zachrisson of Swedish Public Service Radio and we've co-founded a Nordic version, you could say, of a JournalismAI collaborative network. And we wanted to do that because we see that despite all of these strategies for more diverse newsrooms, more inclusive tech organizations, very few, if even any, newsroom today has all of the competences, all the perspectives that we need to meet the challenges and think about the opportunities related to AI. And just to echo what Jeremy was talking a bit about when it comes to local news and having a local network, I think global alliances like that of JournalismAI are absolutely brilliant in putting these topics on our agendas. But in reality, there's very practical regional differences that we need to cater to. So for us, for example, that's typically in NLP, NLG, where Scandinavian languages are very different from the English markets. So having a local network has also been a big focus of ours this past year.
Yeah, thanks for that, Agnes. I mean, you're so right. This is 2021 was the year when AI ethics really, quite right, it got main stage. And I'm so pleased that from the beginning of this project, that's been a component, as you know, from the work you did on AI ethics and bias last year with the collab. I'm really pleased to bring in Abhishek now, because one of the things about this year's JournalismAI project is we've been much stronger in the Asia Pacific region, if you like. We've obviously got one colleague indeed based in Bangalore now, and some wonderful collab teams. Now, you are working with the cutting edge with, one of the more innovative media organizations in India. What have you been up to this year?
Well, thanks. And firstly, very happy to be here, and really I'm honored to interact with you folks, and congratulations on the amazing work that you guys have been doing. And it's an amazing festival. And like Agnes, I plan to spend some time looking at all the previous sessions over the last week. Well, here you're so right, and Asia Pacific, specifically India, is a very different market from, as when compared to, let's say, a European market or American markets. Price sensitivity, and there's a lot of factors that influence customer decision making, as well as how you portray a certain amount of content. Now, when thinking about AI, AI for us is, as Abraham Maslow said, like it's when you have a hammer in your hand, everything else seems like it's a nail, right? So what the time that we have been spending here is trying to find the right use cases. Over the last couple of years, we have been doing a lot of POCs. We have proof of concepts, if you may. We have been trying, we have done about 70, 75 plus experiments. And these are just very small experiments employing new age AI techniques, largely with the external non-media ecosystem. We are just trying to bring in those technologies and adopting, and just figuring out that if a certain technology is helping us getting a better experience to our customer or to our newsrooms, or in general content publishing as a as a working routine, right? We've been able to establish some interesting facts with some interesting products, rather, with automated articles. We have a good amount of automated articles that are now being published in our English news site. But we are also doing trials for our Hindi news site. And as Agnes said, that even Hindi as a Indian language, and we have tons of different languages here, but Hindi is one of the most popular ones. Getting these systems to work in one of your local languages, it's a real challenge. So that's one of the areas that we are exploring. But the larger point that we are chasing this year is largely two buckets of work. One is how to employ AI techniques, or tools rather, to simplify editorial, the number of hours a typical editor would spend to publish content, right? What we want editors to, people who publish content, to think about their content first and leave the rest of the things to automated systems. So you don't have to think about what keywords do I use, what is a title do I use. So we are doing experiments in those areas, because that really makes publishing life, or digital publishing life, easier. We are doing things like, okay, if there's an article and if I have to insert some images in that, what is the right image to use, right? So small experiments on things like that. We were able to also automate some podcasts, as we spoke about in one of the previous discussions as well. So we have daily news wraps, which are actually AI generated. So that was a part of small experiment. But after launch, in fact, after driving for about 2 or 3 weeks consistently, what we realized is, the publishing time went down from a typical 3 to 4 hours per podcast to just like less than an hour, right? And it's even gone through for our listeners of the podcast. So one of the visions that we have is to increasingly use automated techniques, not just for podcasts, but for content in general, right? And the larger vision is to simplify editorial input, or the effort required. The other bucket that we have been looking at is subscriptions as a business is largely within the country. Within India, it's a fairly new ecosystem, unlike let's say in European markets or in American markets. It's been there and it's pretty well established, right? But within the Indian subcontinent, it's not as well established, but it's gaining ground. And in post-COVID, it has gained an awesome amount of traction. So now we have dedicated teams within our ecosystem who are actually thinking about how to give the best experience to a subscribed user. And we have been employing AI techniques in terms of propensity algorithms, let's say prediction algorithms, just doing tryouts with various different kinds of tools available out there in the market, so as to figure out the right fit in our overall ecosystem. So that's the second bucket that we have been chasing. Over the next year, I think we want to evolve to more of, we want to evolve by trying out more of AI-driven tools for our revenue, specifically ad revenue related problems, right? To give our advertisers, the best experience, or transparency in terms of advertisements, or the data reporting, just to ensure that they are reaching out to the right audience that they are looking at. So audience is one of the big segments, along with, let's say, how to simplify programmatic revenue. So these are some things that we are on our pipeline. We are looking for people or external services, as well as building internal tools, so that it's able to help us. And that's the roadmap for next year.
It's quite extraordinary, Abhishek. The amount of stuff you're doing. You're like a kind of such a demonstration of all the different potential use cases of these technologies, from the news gathering right through, as you say, to focusing on revenue, on getting some kind of return. It does sound like India is absolutely a very, very fertile place for these developments, and that's very much my experience this year of talking to other people in your region. It's amazing. Jeremy, Abhishek there, looking a little bit ahead to kind of next year, the immediate future. Jeremy, what do you think would be, should be in the minds of whatever journalists, news executives, etc., when they're thinking about this set of technologies?
I mean, I think when we talk about artificial intelligence, the very phrase actually puts up a bit of a wall in the minds of some people, that it feels like AI is fundamentally a technology that we aspire to but won't get to. And I don't think that this needs to be a conversation about the definition of AI, but I think the idea of general AI, a sort of sentient system that thinks for itself, like that is far off and probably will remain far off for a while. On the other hand, Abhishek in particular is talking about lots of really good ways that narrow AI can be employed. And whether you call it narrow artificial intelligence or you call it automation, I think part of what I hope to see in the next year is a lot of newsrooms foregoing the fear of kind of general AI and acknowledging that there are some tasks that are too complicated and that are best left to people, but really embracing some of the widely available, commercially viable forms of automation and narrow artificial intelligence that can really help. So for example, if you are a newsroom that does audio-based reporting and distribution, then automated or artificial intelligence powered transcription is absolutely in your grasp. It's not very expensive. It's widely available. There are lots of different systems. So one thing that I hope is that we will see a lot more adoption in smaller places of these tools and techniques that are widely available. I don't think that there is a US-based student who hasn't experimented with Grammarly, which is a widely available freemium tool that checks words. The irony is that in lots of professional newsrooms that are focused on writing, some of these systems and tools are not employed yet. So I think that's one thing. So just sort of adopt some of the tools that are already there. The second thing is, I hope and believe that we will see more meaningful research between academics, between the research arms of professional companies and regular newsrooms. And we need to look beyond the obvious partners. I mean, I adored working at the Washington Post and have collaborated with the New York Times, but we need to find ways into other newsrooms that are not already doing this work on their own. And we need to use a human-centered process so that we actually are developing the next generation of tools and systems that fit the needs of journalists, instead of trying to retrofit these existing systems to newsrooms. And then the third thing that I think we need to see, and I believe that the conversation that has started in the last few years around the ethics of use of artificial intelligence, is that we need a much more inclusive set of people working on these challenges. And that if we are going to meaningfully solve the way these kinds of systems and tools work, one thing, for example, that I felt intimately from working on the Collab AI Americas, and that Agnes was alluding to, is that we need to start looking at how many of these systems are particularly trained on English. And that to really make the impact that we want to have globally, we need to start saying how many machine learning systems, how many natural language processing systems have corpuses that they're trained on that are not English, whether it's Portuguese or other languages. Right now, there just aren't enough. And so I think that also has to be a big focus of what we do in the next year.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Agnes, Abhishek and Jeremy both stressed really the very practical issues, less talk about kind of, robots taking over the world and science fiction and so on, and much more about the nuts and bolts. What do you think should be on people's minds in this next year or so when they're thinking about these technologies?
Our own nuts and bolts. One thing that really fascinates me about the increased use of AI in journalism is how it pushes us human beings to vocalize our own values and more explicitly state and plan for our direction. Where do we want to go? So obviously AI systems learn from data, and they typically do a lot better if that data is straightforward. Understanding numerical data about temperature would typically be a much easier task for an AI system than, for example, explaining the symbolism of a beautiful painting. So there's much in that journalistic tradition that might feel very straightforward for someone who's been doing it for a long time. You could call it journalistic gut feeling or whatever you like. But that's not necessarily expressed in ways that a machine can read and in turn reproduce. So digitizing cultural and professional practices, that's no easy task, but it's one that news organizations who want to develop and use AI in ways that align with and even furthers their mission, they're going to have to do that. They're going to have to invest in that. If we want to bring machines into our workflows, that also demands new practices from us. So going for hybrid setups, that requires an understanding of and a respect for the quite significant change that that's likely to bring. It's not too different from a human-to-human relationship, really. Adding two people together rarely leaves either of them exactly the same as they were before going into it. So that's definitely something that I think newsrooms need to focus more on it and invest more in going forward.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I'm not a technology person. I don't understand it in the way that Abhishek and I think Jeremy actually understand the tech. But I am fascinated by what it can do. But I'm also fascinated by when I look at the journalists who have been working with us innovating, or I just look at the great case studies out there, it makes you think again about the journalism itself in a quite human way. Why do audiences use the content that we create? What are we thinking about when we're thinking as journalists about what news is? And I think because these technologies can kind of reshape the way we make it, it's also making us kind of think a bit more about, what is the point of what we're doing? Why should people value it and so on? And I think that is a kind of human question, isn't it? That's a question about who we are and what we want and all that kind of stuff, which kind of takes me into my last question to you all. And I'll start with you, Abhishek, which is thinking, ahead, perhaps even dreaming a little bit, or perhaps having nightmares about the future of AI and journalism. What would be your kind of big hope around these technologies, personally or professionally where you're working? What do you think could happen in the future with journalism and AI?
Well, the best and worst thing that you could think of is a AI system writing articles. Well, people may or may not really agree to it, but believe me when I say that we really tried out a tool which does that, and the output was absolutely not there, right? So, but yeah, it's a very interesting question when you look at it, the way the ecosystem has been evolving and the kind of progress that we have been making. It's pretty awesome. But before we get into that, I think we'll have to acknowledge the challenges. And as Agnes said, that the real crux of the matter comes when it gets to people, processes, and understanding. So you have to first crack the little things where you say that, look, this technology is actually your friend. It's going to, so that you can focus in the right area. It's going to take care of all the other stuff, right? So things like well, titles to articles for that matter, inserting images. If you don't have the real image, you probably look into image bank. These are simple work routines that you're not very excited about doing when it comes to the publishing ecosystem. So when people get that understanding that, okay, this tool is now simplified my life and it's actually helping me doing my job better, that's when you get that confidence. People get that confidence in terms of automated system doing certain things, right? After the confidence is gained, that's when you get to thinking and dreaming of larger aspects. The entire Jeremy used the word automation, so that's exactly the point that even we are chasing, that it's the future is what, at least for the next year, is looking at little bits and pieces and small proof of concepts, which I can't really go back and tell my management that, look, I'm going to utilize this and I'm going to come back to you after a year, right? So the idea is doing something very, very, taking small steps at a time, so that you spend a week, couple of weeks, 3 weeks, or a month doing 1 or 2 experiments, and then quickly report that, hey, I think it's a real, it's good value that we did this, or hey, it's absolute failure, right? So, but coming back to the risk point, I think one of the key things over here is for the management to realize that, and this comes from the top, by the way. So there has to be a certain budget. It has to be financially a decision at the management that, yes, it is going to take a while. We'll probably invest in some money, and we can't really expect a ROI as immediate, but over the longer term, it's really going to help. And I think these are the key things that, especially, I mean, I'm not sure how do the other ecosystems, I'd love to learn about how do the other ecosystem think about it, but financial viability in a cost-sensitive market like ours is one of the key things that has to, even before the confidence part, you have to make a car work first and then get people into the car and then drive around for them to feel safe and confident that, yes, this is going to help me. So I think that's something that's a crucial step that I think this ecosystem has been taking.
That's fascinating. Thanks very much, Abhishek. Jeremy, I want to ask you, I don't want to be rude, but you and I have seen previous waves of technological change in journalism, haven't we? I mean, over your right shoulder, you actually have a computer which I assume dates from your youngest childhood, but you've seen these things happen in the past. I just wonder how you characterize this bundle of technologies that we're putting under the umbrella of artificial intelligence. Do you think it is, as Abhishek is saying, in a sense, it's incremental, or is there a kind of big bang around the corner, do you think?
I think there are really two paths. And when I think about how most people understand artificial intelligence, I think it's a little bit like learning a card trick that you've seen a magician do. The first time you see it, it feels magical because you have no idea how it could be done. And by the time you practice it and you practice it and you practice it and you can do it, there's nothing magical about it anymore. And I think artificial intelligence is like that. What we define today as artificial intelligence, tomorrow feels like automation because it seems normal or we understand it. And so artificial intelligence is sort of always around the corner, the magical one, because as we get closer to it in that incremental way that Abhishek was talking about, it no longer feels special. I think there are two really critical things here. One is that I think we do need people to do more incremental work that will demystify some of the techniques that we're talking about. But two, I think we have an opportunity to really pursue some interesting questions. Journalism and the tasks associated with journalism are so often defined by the method of distribution, even today, the legacy method of distribution, that I think we have limited ourselves in what these artificial intelligence techniques can allow us to do. So for example, my guess is the kind of automated stories Abhishek is talking about are ones that publish stories that wouldn't have seemed terribly out of date if printed in a newspaper 100 years ago. Why do we write stories the way we do is because of the needs of the distribution for then. So in the US, we talk about the inverted pyramid. We write stories that, as they are reported, then have a final state that we publish. in a digital environment, we don't necessarily need that. You don't expect Wikipedia to be unchanging after a Wikipedia entry is created. It evolves, but we don't allow news stories, whether they're audio, video, or text, to evolve today because of his historic distribution. So for example, artificial intelligence techniques could allow us to cover a living narrative. We've done some experiments with this, both at the Night Lab and we did at the Washington Post, but widely, we're still talking about the kinds of ways we would employ artificial intelligence in the same way that we would have done journalism 50 or 100 years ago. And I think that's the thing that, if we talk about the non-incremental change we can make, it's really exploring some of these fundamental questions about how do people and why do people want and need news, and how could AI techniques help us with that?
Yeah, really interesting, Jeremy. Thanks. Agnes, I come to you for the last answer. You mentioned earlier that Schibsted isn't just about journalism. You know, you're interested in artificial intelligence in other fields as well, and it strikes me that this technology seems to have perhaps a more profound, more fundamental effect in fields, for example, such as medicine, you know, pharmaceuticals, or even in a kind of more worrisome way in security or even warfare. You know, these technologies could well be quite transformational in both the actual practice of those industries, as it were, but also in the ethics of it and the way we think about it and the impact it's going to have on society. I just wonder how you can relate that to little old journalism. You know, how profound do you think this is going to be, or has been, either as an opportunity or as a threat for journalism, and not just journalists, but you know, all of us who depend or enjoy consuming journalism as well. What do you think about that in that sort of future context?
I think AI is going to be hugely impactful for journalism, and as you say, other fields as well. But in the not too distant future, I do believe that we won't be so narrowly focused on AI use cases or even exactly how AI is applied in different industries or fields. But I believe that we'll talk about it as infrastructure, that AI technologies are part of our infrastructures. A lot of people have been using the metaphor of electricity. So when it first came, people were scared of it, a little bit of magic, like Jeremy talked about, and discussions about how to use it, if you wanted to use it, those were heated. But today we walk into a room and press a button, and if that button doesn't work, we get frustrated. And I think we'll see something like that happen for journalism as well. And when we talk about what AI as infrastructure can mean for journalism, lots of exciting opportunities are obviously going to present themselves. But in order for us to reap them, again, I'm going to have to stress the point of investing in the groundwork now. It might seem sparkly and magical, but we really need to take action in laying a solid foundation now. I really like Jeremy's point on a living narrative and a narrative that we can shape. So going forward, I think it'll be absolutely central for news organizations to prepare their people, not just their tech stack, for this change towards infrastructure. In promoting that change, I think we're maybe on a dangerous path where we're already subtly labeling journalistic organizations as AI laggards, or as if we're somehow behind every other field. In preparation for this session, I actually went back to the 2019 report that you wrote, Charlie. And 2019, obviously, in some ways, is forever ago in AI. But when I was looking at the challenges and the attitudes that you wrote about, it could have just as well been written today. In AI, it could feel as if things are moving with greater speed than ever before, but culture is slow, change is slow, and we need to respect that and plan for it. So going forward towards this infrastructural state, I just want to promote that we invest in building a foundation that we can scale and leverage sustainably in the future. That doesn't put you behind, but it gives you a strategic advantage in the long term.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. This is a really long-term strategic set of issues. Listen, we've run out of time, you three, and you've all been absolutely wonderful, wonderfully brilliant. So many ideas there to chew on and think about. And also, I really hope that next year I get to see all three of you in person, so we can continue this kind of conversation. I really look forward to working with all three of you, and I wish you, the best of luck for the upcoming year as well. That was a fantastic session. I'm really grateful. So thank you very much, and goodbye. Ciao.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Agnes.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And before we finish, that was a wonderful session, and it's been an amazing festival, JournalismAI Festival, our second festival, and dare I say, I think it's been even richer than last year and even more interesting and exciting. But it wouldn't have been possible without my fantastic team. I'm based at the LSE, where I run Polis, the LSE think tank, and that's the host of the JournalismAI project. But I have three wonderful colleagues that I would like to bring on to the digital stage, as it were. The wonderful, wonderful Lakshmi, who is based in Bangalore. Hi there, Lakshmi. Wonderful Sabrina, who's normally based in beautiful, beautiful Italy, but has actually joined us for this week in London. And of course, you all know Mattia Peretti, the manager of this whole project, who's been a fantastic colleague and a great friend over the last few years. I just want to get a very quick sentence from you two. Lakshmi, quickly, a quick sentence. How has the festival been for you?
It's been amazing. I think all the speakers so far have been so great, and the audience engagement has been so great too. So I'm really happy with how it's all panned out. Great.
Sabrina, I know you this year you've been doing so much for this project, and you did the fantastic academy for small newsrooms that we launched over the summer. So thank you so much for that. But the festival, you're just exhausted, are you? How's it been?
A little bit exhausted, but also just very happy to have seen sort of all of the activities that we've carried throughout the year and see the results all shared in this amazing setting of a festival. So being able to exchange ideas and see sort of the fruit of this project, it's been a great experience for me as well.
That's wonderful. And obviously we wanted to get Lakshmi over to London as well, but we had visa issues. Next year we'll just have to do this whole damn thing from Bangalore, won't we? But finally, final word, Mattia, are you still alive? That's it. Oh, good, you remember to unmute. That makes a pleasant change. Well done.
See, I also learned something during this festival, and it's not related to AI for once. It's been an amazing week. It's been great to work with Sabrina here, who's sitting in front of me, and such a shame, unfortunately, to not be able to be in the room with Lakshmi as well. But it's been an amazing opportunity for me to work with this team throughout the year, and I couldn't be prouder of the work that Lakshmi and Sabrina did this year on putting together the festival program. If I think of Lakshmi, of course, the academy, as you mentioned, for Sabrina, it's been an honor for me to coordinate this team, and as always, a pleasure to work with you, Charlie. I want to thank all the speakers, of course, for this fantastic festival, and a special thanks to all the participants of our collab challenges. You have met some of them during this festival presenting your work, but obviously there are plenty of their colleagues who worked hard behind the scenes during 6 months to come up with those ideas and prototypes that they have presented over the last few days. So this has been great. It's been fantastic to be able to showcase the work, and we will continue, of course, to sharing on our newsletter all the links of the works they have done so that you can benefit from it as well. Obviously, a thank you to the Google News Initiative, and in particular to David Dieudonné for making this possible since the first year of the project. So it's been a pleasure to host this festival together. We have like an evening now to go on and enjoy evening of what's left here in London, at least, and celebrate what we've done together this time. But I really want to thank for the last time everyone at home for following and participating, all the thoughtful questions we got during the sessions. It's been amazing. Continue watching the videos on YouTube, continue engaging with us, and let us know how we can help you and your organization make the most of AI. So that's pretty much it from my side. Charlie, the last words are yours.
No, just to say, the story continues. That's the big message, I think. just in that session we had where people were talking about the immediate future and the long-term future around journalism and these technologies. It's a story that's going to be continuing, and Journalism AI obviously will be continuing next year. So I really hope that we can continue to expand this network, to keep reaching out to parts of the journalism ecosystem in different parts of the world, and that we continue to meet these amazing people who are doing such great work. And I really look forward to working with my team again next year. So thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you, Charlie. So just a reminder to everyone at home before we go, all the videos of the festival are available at youtube.com/polislsc. So you can check over the weekend, over the Christmas holidays, if Christmas is something you celebrate where you are. Please make sure to just review the great conversations and presentations that happened during this festival. And if you have to go to one single place, if you don't know where to start about looking at AI in journalism, the AI Journalism Starter Pack is probably your place to go. We published it just a few weeks ago, and it's a guide designed to help news organizations learn about the opportunities offered by AI to support journalism, which it's what this festival was all about. So that's the last word from me. That's a big thank you to everyone for this festival. Once again, speakers, people listening at home, collab participants, everyone else, and my team, especially for the last thank you. This has been great. We look forward to continuing this work in 2022. Thank you, everybody. Good to see you.